You'll need a ruler, a large piece of paper or poster board, a pencil, a pack of small sticky notes, and a calligraphy pen. You'll also need some information regarding all the individual family members you're going to be adding to your family tree. This will include information such as their names, date and place of birth, and dates of deaths. Drawing a family tree is all about planning, and the first decision to make is how big it's going to be. The tree can be as big as 20 generations or as small as 3. When deciding on the size of your tree, consider the following. How big is the piece of paper or poster board you're going to use? And how much information have you been able to gather? Determine, through your genealogy research, how many generations of information you actually have. Your tree should end where you first encounter a blank regarding information about a generation. Next, you'll have to think about how large you want your writing to be. A good rule of thumb is to start with around 4 or 5 generations. The next step is to create the grid. Drawing a grid on your paper will ensure you keep all of your generations and your tree straight and even. Turn your paper so that it's in landscape, then measure the height and width. To assess the height of the grid blocks, you need to divide the height of the paper by the amount of generations you're going to include. For example, if the paper is 20 inches tall and you're going to include 5 generations, then each grid block will be 4 inches tall. Then go ahead and divide the paper width by the amount of individuals in your final generation. I've included this guide for you. The amount of individuals per generation is as following. 1 generation equals 1 individual, 2 generations, 2 individuals, 3 generations equals 4 individuals, and 4 generations equals 8 individuals. 5 generations equals 16 individuals, and 6 generations equaling 32. That means if the width of your paper is 32 inches and you're including 5 generations, or 16 individuals, then each of the grid blocks will have a width of 2 inches. Next, transfer the measurements you've worked out onto the edges of the paper, top, bottom and sides. Do this using your ruler and pencil, marking the distances of your grid onto the paper. Now, using your ruler again, draw a straight, faint line from top to bottom at each point that you've marked. Once you've all the vertical lines drawn, start doing the same horizontally. Your grid should now fill the whole of the paper. Each of your grid blocks represents an individual member in your family tree. Now is a good time to use those sticky notes, rather than choosing to write information directly on your tree. This will save your tree from getting messy from any mistakes made early on. So for every member you intend to add to your tree, write down their name and significant dates on a sticky note. Then arrange the notes onto your grid, starting with the first generation at the bottom. Now it's time to design your tree shape. Using the placements of the sticky notes as a guide, use a pencil to lightly sketch the branches and the tree trunk. Make all of your lines faint so that they're easily erased should you make a mistake. When you're happy with your design, use a calligraphy pen or something similar and go back over the faint lines you created with the pencil. Next, you can transfer the information from the sticky note to the corresponding grid block on the paper. Be certain that space in your grid block will hold all the information you need to add, and you may find that you need to make your writing smaller than normal. Concentrate on transferring one sticky note's worth of information at any one time, so that you don't get confused. Once you've added the information, you can confidently discard your sticky note. When you have all the family members added, you can erase all the faint grid lines and enhance your tree with as much colouring and shading as you wish.